Before I go into the option, let me emphasize that there is no preferred option. The order in which the options are presented does not indicate any priority or ranking or favor of the options by the committee. These options are intended for discussion and to generate feedback. Just as a reminder, 2 of the 4 options that I'm about to present are from the original group of 5 options that we posted in January, and 2 of them are new options based on community feedback and committee discussion. The board will review feedback from this meeting and will have discussion and take action in April. Before we get into the actual options, I want to look at the current boundaries so that you can understand how all of these option sheets will work. The map on the left illustrates the current lower elementary boundaries. Westchester is denoted by a red shade, Claremont in yellow, Glenwood in purple, Oakhurst in blue, and Winona Park in green. The table to the right shows all the data related to the facilities. So we show our current capacity, current enrollment, projected enrollment for 2018-19, and then 19-20 and 2020-21. The utilization calculates the enrollment versus the capacity, and the capacity does not include any mobile learning cottages or modular classrooms. The utilization is shaded to denote what level of utilization is. And so currently we have some facilities that are projected to be under 85% utilized in 2019-20, and those are denoted by blue. Facilities that are utilized at 85 to 95% are in green, 95 to 115% are in gold, and above 115% is red. So looking at this is our current state, and this reflects what our utilization would be if we did not have the capacity for Tally coming online. And so the way this works is this is our current grade configuration here of a K3-4-5, and then K3-4-5 again in 18-19, and then it switches in 19-20 to the K2-3-5. And so you'll see the utilization at all of the lower elementaries drops, and the utilization at the upper elementary or FAVE increases dramatically. And so this shows our need for that additional facility at Tally Street. Last thing to look at on this chart is the feeder pattern, and this just illustrates visually how the schools will feed from lower to upper elementary schools. So in this case, it's very simple. Every single elementary school feeds into FAVE, and as we look at some of the options, you'll see that we start to have some splits between FAVE and Tally Street. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail later. One of the inherent challenges that we faced throughout this process was that we did have some excess capacity at the lower elementary level, but it was all located north of the train tracks. And the overutilized schools were all located south of the train tracks. Due to the difficulty of crossing the tracks, this kind of created some issues, especially since our current boundaries align with the tracks. Some of the options that you're going to see are going to take some areas that are south of the tracks and assign them to schools in the north. We'll start with option A. This is actually option 3 from our original post of options back in January. This is a very minor option as far as changes go. We've got one area here that's located right around Tally Street that would move into Glenwood. We've got another area down here on the south western portion of Winona Park that would move into Oakhurst. Looking at the uppers, we would have 100% of Westchester, and Oakhurst would feed into FAVE along with a small percentage of students from Winona Park. Claremont, Glenwood, and Winona, the other remaining part of Winona Park, would all feed into Tally Street. Here's the data sheet associated with option A. You can see a smaller version of the map right here. Our proposed feeder pattern. So you can see again that Claremont and Glenwood will feed 100% into Tally Street. 76% of Winona Park would feed into Tally Street, while the other 24% feeds into FAVE, along with 100% of Westchester and 100% of Oakhurst. Looking at the data sheet here, you can see the changes in utilization compared to the current state are a little different. We do have a little bit less utilization at Winona Park because we're moving some students from Winona Park into Glenwood. Looking at the upper elementaries, again, our overall utilization, the best it's going to get to in 2020-21 is 112%. And so we're 105% utilized at FAVE and 118% utilized at Tally Street. Looking at the benefits and challenges for this area, we're only impacting 3% of the students at the lower elementary level. We maintain walkability for most families. We maximize walkability at the upper level. Some of the challenges that we have a feeder split of 24 and 76% at Winona Park. Claremont is still underutilized because we haven't added any more students to it. Oakhurst is still overutilized, and then the utilization is a little bit imbalanced at the upper elementary level. This chart over here shows walkability for the schools. You can see that the percentage of students that would live within 1 mile of all the facilities. Moving on to option B, this is again our previous option 4A from our January post. In this particular scenario, all of the lower elementary boundaries stay completely as is. The only changes, of course, would be establishing the boundary for Talley Street. You can see in this map, all of Westchester would feed into Fave, along with all of Oakhurst, and then we'd have a split up here at Claremont. I think it's about 45% would go to Oakhurst and 55%, the remaining part over here would go to Talley, along with 100% of Glenwood and all of Winona Park. Here's our data sheet associated with option B. Again, feeder pattern up here, you can see that Claremont, 55% to Talley Street, 45% to Fave, and then Glenwood and Winona Park feed 100% to Talley Street, and Oakhurst and Westchester feed 100% to Fave. Looking at our overall utilization here in our data sheet, it's going to be for the lowers just as it is today. So 71% at Claremont, 87% at Glenwood, 108% at Oakhurst, 97% at Westchester, 106% at Winona Park for an overall utilization of 94%. Looking at our uppers, again, the best that we're going to get to average is 112%. And so in this particular scenario, we're at 115% at Fave, 109% at Talley Street. Looking at our benefits and challenges, this does not move any students at the lower elementary level. We maintain walkability at the lower elementary level, and our upper elementary utilizations are balanced. Some of the challenges that we have here, we do have a feeder split at Claremont, 45-55%, which is pretty close to a 50-50 split. Claremont is underutilized, while Oakhurst and Winona Park are overutilized. We do have some students that were previously able to walk to Fave that may need to be bused to Talley Street. And again, we have our walkability chart down here. You can see that on average, 86% of the students at the lowers are within 1 mile of their school, and 40% of the students at the upper elementaries are within 1 mile of their school. Option C, this is a new option. This is based on feedback that we got from our post in January, along with discussions that the committee had based on those results. As you can see, the lower elementaries are completely unchanged from their current state. If we look at the upper elementaries, that's where we start to see those differences. In this scenario, Westchester and Oakhurst both feed 100% into Fave, along with a portion of Winona Park. And then we have 100% of Claremont, Glenwood, and the remaining portion of Winona Park that would feed into Talley Street. The main difference in this one is that we have this area right here is a little different than we had in the other options. This is McDonough Street. And then this area down here, the boundary on this line would be Candler, and all the students residing on Candler Street would go to Talley Street. Data sheet for option C. You can see our maps are up here. We've got our feeder pattern data right here. This illustrates our 76% split from Winona Park to Talley and a 24% split from Winona Park to Fave. Glenwood and Claremont both feed 100% into Talley Street. Oakhurst and Westchester both feed 100% into Fave. Looking at our overall data here, again, because we haven't made any changes at the lowers, these are exactly the same as the current. Looking at the uppers, we're perfectly balanced at 112% at both schools. Looking at our benefits and challenges, the upper elementary schools are completely balanced. We do not move any students in the lower elementary schools, and the walkability is maintained at the lower elementary level. Challenges that we have, the feeder split at Winona Park is 76% to Talley and 24% to Fave, and we still have Claremont underutilized while Oakhurst and Winona Park are overutilized. Looking at our overall walkability, the lower elementaries are the same at 86%, and then the uppers were at 44%. Finally, moving on to option D. Again, this is a new option based on feedback collected from our post in January and then review and comment from the committee. Again, our lower elementaries are completely unchanged. Looking at our upper elementaries, Westchester and Oakhurst would feed 100% to Fave, along with a smaller portion of Winona Park. And then Claremont, Glenwood, and the remaining portion of Winona Park would feed 100% into Tally Street. Moving on to our data sheet for option D. Again, here's our map. Here's our feeder pattern diagram, and you can see we're 69% of Winona Park feeding to Tally Street and 31% to Fave. And again, Glenwood and Claremont 100% to Tally Street, Oakhurst and Westchester 100% to Fave. Again, our lower elementaries are completely unchanged. Looking at our uppers, we're 116% utilized at Fave and 109% utilized at Tally Street. Looking at our benefits and challenges, this again does not move any students at the lower elementary level, and walkability is maintained at the lower elementary level. Our challenges, we've got our feeder split at Winona Park, 69% to Tally Street and 31% to Fave, and we do have Claremont underutilized, while Oakhurst and Winona Park are still overutilized. Looking at our walkability, we average again that 86% at the lowers and 43% within 1 mile of the uppers. At this point, I'd like to go through some additional considerations that kind of kept coming up throughout the process. At every steering committee meeting, we had a representative from the Decatur Housing Authority present. All the options have been looked over and are acceptable to the DHA. Next, in order to avoid overbuilding, the facility plan was designed to build to 95% of the 2020-21 projected enrollment. And to reiterate, portable classrooms or learning cottages are not included in any of the capacity numbers. And finally, at this point, College Heights will remain the Early Childhood Learning Center, or ECLC, for the district. If College Heights is put into the circulation with the other elementary schools in the future, it does not necessarily mean that boundaries will have to change again. It could be a magnet school. Finally, moving on to feedback and next steps. At this time, please review and reflect on the options as presented. Please complete the online survey and provide your feedback. Your feedback will be considered as options are finalized. Final options will be presented to the school board for discussion and action. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation, and we're excited to see all your feedback.